Have you ever found yourself trapped in negative thoughts, feeling overwhelmed by worry, fear, or anger? What if there was a way to free yourself from this constant cycle? Can your mind be trained to remove all the negativity that weighs you down? Imagine waking up every day feeling at peace, free from stress, and able to approach life with a calm and positive mindset. Sounds impossible? Well, it's not. Buddhism teaches us powerful tools to transform our minds, to free ourselves from suffering, and to live in harmony with the world around us. It's all about understanding how our thoughts shape our reality and how we can change that reality for the better. But before we dive into this, let me ask you, have you ever wondered why negativity seems to stick with you? Why does your mind often drift to fear, anxiety, or anger? Could there be a deeper reason for this? The answer might surprise you. Through the wisdom of Buddhism, we can uncover the hidden truths about our minds and how to overcome these negative forces. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, where we explore powerful insights and teachings to help you live a more peaceful, fulfilled life. In this video, we'll explore how to remove negativity from your mind and transform your life. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. If you're ready for lasting change, keep watching. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. So please, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more valuable wisdom to you and others who need it. Now, let's dive into the teachings of Buddhism. Understanding the nature of negativity and how to let go of it is the first step in creating a peaceful and positive mind. Understanding negativity. What Buddhism teaches about suffering and attachment. Every day, we experience countless thoughts and emotions. Some of them are light and pleasant, like happiness and joy, while others are heavy and difficult, like anger, fear, or sadness. These negative feelings can often seem overwhelming, but what if we told you that the root of all this negativity is not the world around us, but the way we view it? Buddhism teaches that suffering is a natural part of life. In fact, the very first teaching of the Buddha's core message, is called the Four Noble Truths. These truths shed light on the reasons why suffering exists and how we can end it. The second of these truths is especially important when it comes to understanding negativity in our minds. It teaches us that suffering arises because of attachment. What does this mean? In simple terms, attachment happens when we become too attached to things, people, or even our own beliefs. We hold on so tightly to certain outcomes or situations that we forget one important fact. Nothing in life stays the same. Things change, people change, situations change. And yet, our minds often continue to cling to things as if they were permanent. This attachment creates suffering because it conflicts with the natural flow of life. Imagine a time when you felt upset because something didn't go as planned. Maybe you were angry because someone didn't meet your expectations, or maybe you felt frustrated because you didn't get the result you were hoping for. In that moment, your mind was attached to a specific outcome, and when reality didn't match that expectation, negativity arose. You felt disappointed, angry, or sad, even though nothing was really wrong except for your attachment to how things should have been. Buddhist teachings on impermanence help us understand that everything is constantly changing and nothing lasts forever. Our thoughts, feelings, and even our bodies are in a state of constant transformation. When we accept this, we begin to see that attachment to any moment, any person, or any outcome is what causes us pain. If we learn to let go, we can free ourselves from the chains of suffering. In the world around us, there are endless opportunities for us to attach ourselves to things. We attach to our jobs, our possessions, our relationships, and even to our own identities. But the more we attach, the more we suffer. The more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more we become frustrated when life doesn't go our way. This is why negativity often takes root in our minds. Buddhism teaches that the key to understanding and overcoming suffering is to let go of attachment. This does not mean we should stop caring about people or things. It means we should learn to appreciate them without holding on so tightly that we cause ourselves harm when they change. Think of it like holding a glass of water. If you hold the glass lightly, you can carry it without strain. But if you grip it too tightly, your hand will start to hurt, and the glass may even slip and break. The same principle applies to our minds. When we hold on too tightly to things, we suffer. But when we learn to let go, we experience peace. One of the most powerful ways to release attachment and reduce negativity is by practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in each moment without judgment. This simple act of awareness can help us recognize when we are becoming attached to something, whether it's a thought, an emotion, or a situation. By observing these attachments without judgment, we can create space between ourselves and our emotions. We begin to see that thoughts and feelings are temporary. They come and go like clouds in the sky. They do not define us, and we do not need to hold on to them. This is where meditation comes in. Meditation allows us to train our minds to let go of the distractions and attachments that keep us stuck in negative thinking. Through meditation, we can quiet the mind and gain insight into the true nature of our thoughts and feelings. We begin to see that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that observes them. This realization is incredibly powerful because it gives us the freedom to choose how we respond to our thoughts and emotions. Instead of reacting with anger or fear, we can respond with compassion, patience, and understanding. When we let go of attachment and practice mindfulness, we start to experience life differently. We no longer react automatically to situations with negative emotions. Instead, we begin to respond with wisdom and clarity. We understand that we cannot control everything in life, but we can control how we choose to respond. This is the essence of freedom in Buddhist philosophy. Freedom is not about controlling external circumstances. It's about cultivating inner peace and wisdom so that no matter what happens around us, we can remain calm, centered, and at peace. Let's take a moment to reflect on a common situation in our lives. Think about a time when you felt angry or frustrated because something didn't go as planned. Maybe it was a work situation, a relationship issue, or even something as small as a missed bus. In that moment, your mind became attached to the idea that things should have gone differently. You believed that the outcome was supposed to be a certain way, and when it wasn't, you felt upset. But what if, instead of reacting with frustration, you had taken a deep breath, acknowledged your feelings, and then let go of your attachment to that outcome? What if you had seen that the situation was simply a passing moment in time, and that nothing was truly worth getting upset over? This is the power of letting go. By releasing attachment, we create space for peace and clarity to enter our minds. We stop allowing external events to control our inner state, and instead, we take control of our own peace. We realize that negativity is not something that comes from outside us. It is something we create when we become attached to things, people, or outcomes. By practicing mindfulness and meditation, we can start to dissolve this negativity and replace it with calm, clarity, and compassion. As we move forward on our journey, we will explore how we can apply these teachings in our daily lives. The practice of letting go of attachment is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, patience, and consistent effort. But with the wisdom of Buddhism as our guide, we can begin to transform our minds and our lives, one step at a time. Remember, negativity is not something that defines us. It is simply a result of our attachments. And when we learn to let go, we open ourselves up to a life of peace, joy, and true freedom. The mind's nature, how thoughts shape reality. In Buddhism, we are taught that the mind is like a garden. Every thought that arises is like a seed. If we plant seeds of negativity, anger, jealousy, or fear, those seeds will grow into weeds that choke our peace and happiness. If, however, we plant seeds of kindness, patience, and love, we nurture a garden full of beauty and joy. But how do we know which seeds are being planted in our minds? The answer lies in understanding the nature of the mind itself. The Buddha taught that the mind is inherently pure, like a clear sky. However, just as clouds obscure the sky, negative thoughts and emotions can cloud the clarity of our mind. These clouds might not be real threats, but they often appear to be, causing us to believe that we are at their mercy. The Buddha also spoke of the mind as a monkey. Imagine a monkey jumping from branch to branch, never staying in one place for too long. This is how our minds often behave. Our thoughts jump from one idea to another, creating chaos and confusion. When the mind is not disciplined, it runs wild with all sorts of distractions and negativity. It's easy to become overwhelmed, as the mind seems to take us on an uncontrollable ride. Now, here's the important part. We are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are simply clouds passing through the sky of our mind. We often get caught up in them, believing they are who we are, but in reality, they are just fleeting moments. By practicing mindfulness, we can begin to observe our thoughts from a distance, without being consumed by them. This allows us to recognize which thoughts are helpful and which ones are harmful. So, how do we begin to change this pattern of thinking? It starts with awareness. When we become aware of our thoughts, we can begin to question them. Are these thoughts serving us? Are they helpful, kind, and positive? Or do they only bring us suffering and frustration? Once we recognize the nature of our thoughts, we can choose to change them. This process is similar to cleaning a dirty mirror. The mirror represents our mind, and the dirt is made up of our negative thoughts. When we clean the mirror, the reflection becomes clearer, and we can see ourselves as we truly are, pure and peaceful. But just like cleaning a mirror takes time and effort, so does clearing our minds of negative thoughts. It's a practice, not something that happens overnight. Buddhism offers several tools to help us work with our thoughts. One of the most powerful practices is meditation. When we meditate, we create space between ourselves and our thoughts. Imagine sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, and watching your thoughts as if they were passing clouds. Some clouds may be dark and stormy, while others are light and fluffy. Instead of reacting to them, you simply observe them without attachment. Over time, the more you practice, the less you are affected by the storms in your mind. Through meditation, we learn to recognize that we have the ability to let go of negative thoughts. We don't have to hold on to them. Just as a cloud eventually passes and the sky clears, negative thoughts too will pass if we don't cling to them. It's important to understand that we are not weak or incapable because we have negative thoughts. It's normal for the mind to be filled with all sorts of ideas and emotions. But with practice, we can train ourselves to let go of the harmful ones and focus on the positive ones. Another key teaching in Buddhism is impermanence. Everything in life, including our thoughts, is temporary. No thought lasts forever. The anger, the fear, the sadness, they will all eventually fade away if we don't feed them with our attention. Understanding impermanence helps us to take a step back and realize that no matter how strong or overwhelming our thoughts may feel, they are not permanent. They are like waves in the ocean. Just as a wave rises and falls, so do our thoughts. This understanding gives us the power to let go. Moreover, in Buddhism, there is the concept of non-attachment. We often get attached to our thoughts and emotions, believing that they define us. But the truth is, we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness behind the thoughts. This awareness is constant and unchanging, while our thoughts are constantly shifting. By practicing non-attachment, we can stop identifying with our thoughts and emotions. We don't need to own every negative thought that comes our way. When we let go of the need to hold on to them, they lose their power over us. A helpful analogy from Buddhism is the bamboo. Bamboo is flexible, bending with the wind but never breaking. Our minds can be like bamboo. Instead of resisting negative thoughts, we can learn to bend with them, accepting them without letting them control us. When we bend with the wind, we are still rooted in the present moment. We are not swept away by the storm of negativity. We can stand tall, grounded, and peaceful, no matter what thoughts arise. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is the idea of emptiness. Emptiness doesn't mean nothingness, but rather the idea that nothing has inherent, fixed meaning. Our thoughts are empty of any permanent essence. They arise, but they do not define who we are. Just as a cloud is empty of a fixed form, so are our thoughts empty of lasting substance. When we begin to see our thoughts as empty, we realize that we don't need to hold on to them. They come and go, but we remain unchanged. This is where the true power of the mind lies. Our minds have the capacity for transformation. By understanding the nature of our thoughts and practicing mindfulness, we can break free from the patterns of negativity that hold us back. The more we train our minds, the more we realize that we can control our reactions. We don't have to let our thoughts dictate our mood, our actions, or our life. We can choose peace, joy, and calm in every moment. Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a tool. If you don't use a tool properly, it can cause harm, but when used skillfully, it can help you create beautiful things. Our thoughts are the same way. If we let them run wild, they can create chaos. But when we learn to control and direct them, they can lead us to wisdom, compassion, and happiness. This is the true power of the mind, to create a reality that is peaceful, loving, and free from suffering. The first step is to understand that we have the power to shape our minds. This realization is liberating. It means that no matter how chaotic or negative our thoughts may be right now, we can change them. The process may take time, but every step is worth it. And with the wisdom of Buddhism, we can learn to nurture a mind that brings us peace, instead of dragging us into turmoil. So, remember, your thoughts are like clouds in the sky. They are temporary. They are not you. With practice, you can clear the clouds and let the sky of your mind shine through, bright and clear. The more you practice, the more you will begin to see the beauty and peace that is always present, just waiting to be uncovered. This is the path to a positive, peaceful mind, one thought at a time. The role of meditation, cultivating inner peace. To understand how to remove negativity from your mind, you must first look inward. When you sit quietly, close your eyes and focus on your breath. What do you notice? Does your mind immediately fill with thoughts, worries, and distractions? Does the noise inside feel overwhelming? This is completely normal. The mind is naturally restless, always jumping from one thought to the next. But through meditation, we learn how to calm this restless energy and create space for peace to enter. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools in Buddhism for transforming the mind. It allows us to become aware of our thoughts and feelings without being controlled by them. By practicing regularly, we can break free from the constant cycle of negativity that arises in our minds. It's like learning to quiet a storm within, to see through the fog of confusion, and to find clarity in the stillness. In Buddhism, meditation is not just about sitting quietly. It is a practice of mindfulness, of being fully present in each moment. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you can observe your thoughts without reacting to them. For example, when you sit down to meditate, your mind might first fill with all sorts of thoughts about the past, the future, your worries, and your plans. These thoughts are natural, but what matters is how you respond to them. Do you get caught up in the stories your mind is telling, or do you simply acknowledge them and let them pass like clouds in the sky? When you meditate, you train your mind to be less reactive. You begin to notice negative thoughts as they arise, but instead of letting them take over, you observe them with compassion and understanding. This distance between you and your thoughts is where real freedom begins. You are no longer a prisoner of your emotions or fears. You can watch them come and go without being swept away. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises from our attachment to things, whether they are people, possessions, or even our own thoughts and emotions. Meditation helps us release that attachment. When we meditate, we practice letting go of our need to control everything. We realize that our thoughts are not permanent, and neither are our feelings. This realization is liberating. It's like learning to let go of a heavy backpack you've been carrying for years. Once you release it, you feel lighter, freer, and more at peace. The power of meditation is that it allows us to create a new relationship with our thoughts. Instead of seeing them as truths that define us, we learn to view them as passing phenomena. This shift in perspective can be life-changing. For example, if you're feeling anxious, meditation helps you step back from the anxiety and recognize that it is just a feeling, not a fact. It's temporary, and it will pass. You don't have to be consumed by it. The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, including our thoughts and emotions. By practicing meditation, we align ourselves with this truth. We come to understand that nothing lasts forever. Not our happiness, not our sadness, and certainly not our negative thoughts. When we embrace this impermanence, we find peace. We can let go of the things that cause us stress and negativity, knowing that they will pass, just like everything else. Meditation is also a practice of self-compassion. Often, we are our own harshest critics. We judge ourselves for our mistakes, our weaknesses, and our failures. But in meditation, we learn to treat ourselves with kindness. When negative thoughts arise, whether they are about ourselves or others, we observe them without judgment. Instead of criticizing ourselves for having these thoughts, we simply acknowledge them with compassion. I see you, we say to ourselves, and I'm not afraid of you. Over time, this practice helps us develop a more loving relationship with ourselves and with others. There is a famous meditation practice in Buddhism called Metta-bhavana, or loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, you focus on sending out love and compassion to yourself and others. It's a powerful way to transform negative feelings like anger, resentment, or jealousy into positive, loving energy. As you sit in meditation, you silently repeat phrases like, "May I be happy. May I be at peace. May I be free from suffering." After a few minutes, you expand this loving kindness to others, your loved ones, your friends, and even people you may find difficult. With regular practice, this meditation can shift your entire mindset, replacing negativity with compassion and love. One of the beautiful aspects of meditation is that it's not just something you do on a cushion. You can bring the mindfulness and peace you cultivate in meditation into your everyday life. For example, when you find yourself caught in a moment of anger or frustration, you can take a few deep breaths and remind yourself of the calmness you've developed through meditation. You can pause and observe your emotions without letting them control you. This is the essence of mindfulness, being fully present no matter what the situation. Over time, as you continue to meditate, you'll notice that the negative thoughts that once dominated your mind begin to lose their power. You'll find it easier to stay calm in stressful situations, to let go of worries, and to approach life with greater clarity and peace. Meditation doesn't magically make life perfect, but it gives you the tools to navigate life's challenges with a clear and calm mind. Buddhism also teaches that true peace comes from within, not from external circumstances. We often think that if only the world around us would change, if only we had more money, a better job, or a more perfect life, then we would be happy. But this is an illusion. True happiness comes from cultivating inner peace. Meditation helps us realize that peace is not something we can find outside of ourselves. It is something we create within. When we meditate, we are building a foundation of peace that can weather any storm, no matter what happens in our external world. As you continue your meditation practice, remember that it's not about achieving perfection. It's about showing up for yourself every day with patience and kindness. It's about observing your mind without judgment and allowing it to settle naturally. With time, the benefits of meditation will become more evident. You'll experience less stress, less negativity, and more joy in your daily life. Meditation is a lifelong journey, but it's a journey worth taking. Every moment you spend meditating is a step toward a more peaceful, positive mind. Through this practice, you can remove the negativity that clouds your thoughts and replace it with clarity, compassion, and inner peace. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to live from a place of peace and mindfulness. It's not about escaping the world, but about learning to face it with a calm and balanced mind. So, take a moment each day to sit quietly, to breathe deeply, and to observe your thoughts without judgment. Whether you meditate for 5 minutes or an hour, the benefits will add up over time. With consistent practice, you will begin to notice a shift, a transformation in how you think, feel, and live. The negative thoughts that once held you back will no longer have the same power. Instead, you will find yourself living with greater peace, presence, and positivity. In the next part, we will explore how the teachings of the Buddha can guide us in letting go of attachment and moving towards a more peaceful and fulfilling life. But for now, remember that the path to inner peace begins with the simple act of sitting down and breathing deeply. The journey may be long, but every step is worth it. Keep going. The Four Noble Truths, a pathway out of negativity. In Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths form the very foundation of understanding life, suffering, and how we can overcome it. They are simple, yet profound teachings that guide us toward a mind free from negativity and suffering. By understanding and practicing these truths, we can begin to transform our lives in ways we never imagined. Let me walk you through them step by step. The first noble truth, the truth of suffering, dukkha. The first noble truth might seem a bit heavy at first, but it's the most honest one. It tells us that suffering is an inevitable part of life. In simple terms, life is filled with challenges, disappointments, and discomforts. We all experience pain, whether it's physical or emotional, whether it's the loss of a loved one or the stress of daily life. This suffering is called dukkha in Buddhist terms. But the important part here is not just that suffering exists, because we all know it does. but that it's not something we can simply avoid. We cannot escape pain, but we can change our relationship to it. If we accept that suffering is part of life, it loses its power over us. We stop trying to run from it and instead learn to face it with understanding. The second noble truth, the cause of suffering, samadhya. The second noble truth dives deeper into why we suffer. It tells us that the cause of suffering is craving or attachment. We suffer because we constantly desire things to be different than they are. We crave pleasure and try to avoid pain. We attach ourselves to things, ideas, or people, hoping they will bring us lasting happiness. But as we know, nothing in life is permanent. When we cling to things, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. People change, circumstances shift, and our desires are never fully satisfied. This craving creates an endless cycle of suffering because it's impossible to hold on to anything forever. Whether it's our material possessions, relationships, or even our ideas of how life should be, attachment binds us to a reality that is always changing, and in doing so, it leads to suffering. Understanding that craving is the root of suffering can be liberating. Once we realize that our unhappiness stems from our attachment to impermanent things, we can start to let go. We no longer need to chase after things or people to feel fulfilled, because true happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances. The third noble truth, the truth of the end of suffering, nirodha. Now, this is the good news. The third noble truth tells us that it is possible to end suffering. This is the heart of Buddhist teaching. Suffering does not have to be a permanent state. We can free ourselves from it by letting go of attachment and craving. When we stop clinging to things, when we stop seeking happiness outside of ourselves, we experience peace and freedom. This truth teaches that true happiness comes from within, not from external sources. The end of suffering is a state of peace, where we are no longer disturbed by the ups and downs of life. We stop needing everything to be perfect or according to our desires. In this state of peace, we can find true contentment. The beauty of this truth is that it shows us the way out. We are not stuck in suffering forever. The path to freedom is in our hands. It's about shifting our mindset, letting go of the need to control everything, and learning to accept things as they are. The end of suffering isn't a far-off dream. It's something we can experience in our everyday lives, right now. The fourth noble truth, the truth of the path leading to the end of suffering, magga. Finally, the fourth noble truth shows us the way to end suffering. It is called the Eightfold Path, and it is a practical guide for living a life that leads to freedom from suffering. The Eightfold Path is divided into three main categories: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Each part of the path is interconnected and helps us cultivate a positive, peaceful, and compassionate mind. The first part of the Eightfold Path is right view. This means understanding life as it truly is, accepting that suffering exists, recognizing that craving causes suffering, and knowing that freedom from suffering is possible. Having the right view means seeing life clearly without the distortions of ignorance and illusion. The second part is right intention. This is about cultivating the right attitude and mindset. It involves having intentions rooted in compassion, kindness, and a genuine desire to free yourself and others from suffering. Right intention means that your actions come from a place of love, not greed or hatred. The third is right speech. Our words have a powerful impact on others and ourselves. Speaking truthfully, kindly, and helpfully helps to create harmony and peace. Right speech is about avoiding lies, gossip, and harmful language. It is about speaking in a way that fosters understanding and respect. Next is right action. Right action refers to ethical behavior, acting in ways that do not harm others and that support the well-being of all living beings. This involves practicing nonviolence, kindness, and respect in our actions. Right livelihood is the fifth part of the path. It teaches us to choose a livelihood that does not cause harm to others. Whether in our jobs or our daily interactions, we should strive to contribute to the well-being of others and the world around us. The sixth part is right effort. This is the effort we put into cultivating a positive, peaceful mind. It means making a consistent effort to overcome negative states like greed, anger, and ignorance, while nurturing positive qualities such as love, patience, and wisdom. The seventh is right mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being present in every moment. It's about being aware of our thoughts, feelings, and actions without judgment. By cultivating mindfulness, we begin to understand the patterns of our mind and gain control over them. Finally, right concentration is about developing deep focus and meditation. By training the mind to concentrate, we can achieve a state of inner peace and clarity. Meditation helps us quiet the noise of our thoughts, allowing us to experience the stillness of the mind and gain insight into the true nature of our existence. Bringing it all together, the Four Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path are not just abstract concepts, they are practical tools that we can apply in our daily lives. They guide us in recognizing and addressing the root causes of our suffering and offer a clear path to freedom. By practicing these teachings, we can gradually remove the negativity that clouds our minds and find a deeper sense of peace and happiness. As we follow the path, we learn to let go of attachment, stop craving things that only bring temporary satisfaction, and open ourselves to the profound peace that comes from within. These teachings remind us that happiness is not something we chase outside of ourselves. It is a natural state that arises when we let go of the things that weigh us down. Through the Four Noble Truths, we come to understand that suffering is part of life, but it doesn't have to define us. By practicing the Eightfold Path, we can release the grip of negativity and begin to live with a heart full of peace, love, and wisdom. And this is the true path to removing negativity from our minds. Mindfulness in daily life, living in the present moment. In the fast-paced world we live in, it's easy to get lost in the noise of our thoughts, the pressure of the future, or the regrets of the past. But what if the key to freeing ourselves from negativity lies in something as simple as being present in the moment? This is where mindfulness comes in. It's the practice of being fully aware of what's happening around you, and more importantly, within you, at any given moment. It's the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment, and to see things as they truly are, without the filters of past experiences or future anxieties. Mindfulness, in the Buddhist sense, is more than just a practice. It's a way of living. It's about tuning into the present moment, not just when you meditate, but in everything you do. Whether you're eating, walking, talking, or simply breathing, mindfulness teaches you to pay attention to the smallest details, to savor the experience, and to remain fully immersed in the here and now. Think about it. How often do you find yourself eating a meal but thinking about something else? Maybe your work, a conversation you had earlier, or something you need to do tomorrow. You're physically eating, but mentally, you're somewhere else. This is the opposite of mindfulness. True mindfulness is about engaging all your senses in the present moment, tasting your food, feeling the texture, noticing the aroma, and appreciating the nourishment it provides. It's simple, but incredibly powerful. When you're fully present, you stop worrying about what happened in the past, and you stop stressing about what might happen in the future. You realize that right now is the only moment you can control. This understanding is key to overcoming negativity. So often, negative thoughts arise because we're either caught up in something that has already passed or anxiously anticipating something that may never come. But by practicing mindfulness, we can quiet those unnecessary worries and find peace in the present. You see, in Buddhism, the mind is seen as a monkey, jumping from one thought to another, never staying still. This monkey mind is often the source of negativity because it keeps us trapped in endless cycles of overthinking, regret, and fear. Mindfulness is like training this monkey to sit still, to focus on what's in front of us, and to stop swinging wildly between the past and the future. It teaches us how to observe our thoughts without getting carried away by them. Start small with mindfulness. You don't have to sit in meditation for hours to practice it. You can start with something as simple as mindful breathing. Take a moment to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and focus entirely on the sensation of your breath entering and leaving your body. Notice how the air feels as it passes through your nose or mouth, how your chest rises and falls. Whenever your mind wanders, gently bring it back to your breath. This practice alone can ground you and help you let go of distractions and negative emotions. As you get more comfortable with mindful breathing, you can extend this awareness to other areas of your life. While you walk, pay attention to each step, how your feet touch the ground, how your body moves. If you're washing dishes, feel the water, the soap, the texture of the plates in your hands. When you're talking to someone, really listen to their words, notice their body language, and be present with them in that moment. Mindfulness in everyday life is all about full engagement, being there completely, without distractions or judgments. One of the most powerful aspects of mindfulness is its ability to reduce stress. When we're constantly worrying about what might go wrong, our bodies are in a state of tension. But when we bring our attention to the present moment, we stop feeding that anxiety. Studies have shown that practicing mindfulness can lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, and promote feelings of calm and relaxation. It's like giving your mind a break from the chaos of life. But mindfulness isn't just about reducing stress, it's also about gaining insight into your own mind. When you practice mindfulness, you start to notice patterns in your thoughts and emotions. You might realize that you have a tendency to get angry at certain things, or that you worry unnecessarily about things that never happen. By observing these patterns without judgment, you can begin to change them. You can let go of old habits and cultivate new ones that serve your well-being. In Buddhism, mindfulness is often linked to the concept of right awareness. This is part of the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddhist guide to ethical living and spiritual awakening. Right awareness is about seeing things clearly, without the distortion of desires or attachments. It's about understanding things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. This kind of awareness helps us let go of negativity because we see that our problems are often just illusions created by our minds. When we approach life with this clarity, we find that many of our worries dissolve on their own. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is that suffering arises when we resist what is. We may not like certain situations, but when we fight against them, we create more suffering. Mindfulness teaches us to accept things as they are, without judgment or resistance. This doesn't mean that we become passive or accept everything without action. It means that we stop fighting reality and start working with it. This acceptance brings peace, and with peace comes the ability to handle negative situations with calmness and clarity. Through mindfulness, we also cultivate compassion. When we're present in the moment, we become more attuned to the suffering of others. We stop being so caught up in our own thoughts and start noticing the needs and feelings of those around us. This empathy naturally leads to more kindness and understanding, which in turn reduces negative emotions like anger or jealousy. Mindfulness opens our hearts, helping us to respond to life with compassion instead of reacting with judgment. Mindfulness is a lifelong practice, and it's okay if you don't get it perfect right away. The key is to start small, to be gentle with yourself, and to keep practicing. The more you practice mindfulness, the more natural it will become to stay in the present moment and let go of negativity. It's like building a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. As you begin to live more mindfully, you'll notice that your mind becomes quieter, your heart becomes lighter, and your experience of life becomes richer. You'll stop being a prisoner of your thoughts, and instead, you'll become the observer, the calm presence that simply watches what arises. This shift is powerful. It frees you from the constant cycle of negative thinking and opens you up to the beauty of life, just as it is. In Buddhism, this practice of mindfulness is not just a technique. It's a way of being. It's about embodying awareness in everything you do, whether you're sitting in meditation or going about your daily tasks. When you live mindfully, you're living with intention, and in doing so, you create space for peace, clarity, and joy to enter your life. And with each mindful moment, you take one step closer to removing the negativity that clouds your mind and heart. Remember, mindfulness is a journey, not a destination. But with each step, you move toward greater freedom, greater peace, and a lighter, more positive mind. The Eightfold Path, practical steps to overcome negativity. In Buddhism, one of the most important teachings to help us overcome negativity is the Eightfold Path. It's not just a set of rules, but a way of living that can guide us towards peace, understanding, and happiness. If you ever wondered, how can I stop the endless cycle of negative thoughts and emotions? The Eightfold Path offers practical steps to help you achieve just that. Let's break down these 8 steps. Imagine they're like 8 keys that unlock the door to a more peaceful and positive life. Right understanding, samadhi. The first key to overcoming negativity is understanding the true nature of life. This means seeing the world as it really is, not as we wish it to be. Everything is temporary. Everything is changing, and all things are interconnected. When we understand this deeply, we stop holding on to things too tightly. We stop resisting change. We realize that suffering is a part of life, but it doesn't have to define us. With this understanding, we start to let go of expectations, and in doing so, we free ourselves from disappointment and frustration. Right intent, Samma Sankappa. The second key is about setting our intentions. What motivates us? What drives our actions? Are we acting out of greed, hatred, or ignorance? Or are we acting out of kindness, compassion, and love? Right intent asks us to reflect on our deepest desires and make sure they align with a peaceful and positive life. If our intentions are pure, our actions will follow suit. When we approach life with a compassionate heart and a clear mind, negativity starts to lose its power over us. Right speech, Samavaka. The third key focuses on our words. Words have immense power. They can either heal or harm. Negative speech, like gossip, lies, or harsh words, creates conflict and hurt in our lives. Right speech teaches us to speak truthfully, kindly, and helpfully. By speaking with care, we create harmony, not just in the world around us, but in our own minds as well. When we stop using words to attack, blame, or criticize, we begin to see the world in a kinder light. Right action, Samakamanta. This step is about how we behave and interact with others. Our actions shape the world we live in. If we act out of anger, selfishness, or fear, we create more suffering for ourselves and those around us. But when we act out of compassion, respect, and fairness, we build a more peaceful world. Right action encourages us to refrain from causing harm, whether through violence, dishonesty, or greed. Instead, we strive to live in harmony with others and with ourselves, which helps us eliminate the negativity that arises from harmful actions. Right livelihood, Samajiva. Right livelihood refers to the way we earn a living. It's not just about how we make money, but also how our work affects others and the world. If our work harms others or the environment, it will weigh heavily on our minds and create negative feelings like guilt or stress. Right livelihood encourages us to engage in work that is ethical, honest, and contributes positively to society. When our livelihood aligns with our values, we feel more fulfilled, and negativity has less room to grow. Right effort, Samavayama. Right effort is about cultivating a positive mind by making an intentional effort to overcome negative states and encourage positive ones. This means we don't simply let negative thoughts and emotions control us. We actively work to replace them with thoughts of peace, kindness, and love. But this doesn't mean forcing ourselves to be positive all the time. Instead, it's about creating a mindset where, over time, positivity becomes natural. Right effort is a continual practice. It requires patience and perseverance. But with time, it becomes easier to let go of negativity. Right mindfulness, Samasati. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools for overcoming negativity. Right mindfulness means being fully present in the moment, paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and actions without judgment. When we're mindful, we can observe the rise of negative thoughts and emotions without being consumed by them. We don't react impulsively, and we don't identify with our negativity. Instead, we simply observe it and let it pass. This helps us cultivate a peaceful mind because we no longer get caught up in our mental chatter. Right concentration, Samma Samadhi. The last step in the Eightfold Path is right concentration. This is the ability to focus our minds on one thing at a time and maintain that focus without distraction. Right concentration is developed through meditation, where we train our minds to be calm and steady. With regular practice, our minds become more focused and we can better control our thoughts. When we have control over our minds, negativity doesn't have the power to overwhelm us. We are able to find peace even in the most challenging situations. Each of these 8 steps is interconnected. They work together like pieces of a puzzle. When we apply them to our daily lives, we start to see changes, not just in how we interact with the world, but also in how we feel within ourselves. Negativity, which once felt overwhelming, begins to lose its grip. We start to feel more grounded, more peaceful, and more in control. But remember, the Eightfold Path isn't something you can master overnight. It's a lifelong journey. Every step you take toward understanding, kindness, and mindfulness is a victory. It's a victory against the negativity that once controlled your mind. It's a path toward lasting happiness, peace, and freedom. The path may not always be easy, but it's worth it. With every step, you move closer to a life where negativity no longer has the power to dominate your thoughts and emotions. By living according to the Eightfold Path, you're not just changing your mindset, you're changing your life. So, take a moment and reflect. Which of these steps do you feel could help you the most right now? Perhaps you're already practicing some of them without even realizing it. Perhaps you're just beginning your journey. Wherever you are on the path, know this: the journey itself is the reward. Every moment you spend aligning your actions with right understanding, right intention, right speech, and the other steps is a step toward a more peaceful and positive life. Letting go of attachment, the Buddhist way to freedom. In life, we often hold on to things, people, and even ideas as if they are part of us. We attach ourselves to what we have, what we want, and what we fear losing. But have you ever stopped to think about what happens when we cling to these attachments? Do we feel more secure, or do we feel more fearful, anxious, and unhappy? Buddhism teaches us that attachment is the root cause of much of our suffering. We believe that by holding on tightly to things, we can control them, and in turn, control our happiness. But this is an illusion. When we become attached, we set ourselves up for pain, because everything in life is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. People, possessions, and even our own thoughts change over time. The more we hold on to something, the more it hurts when we inevitably lose it. Imagine your life as a river. The river is constantly flowing, changing, and evolving. If you try to hold on to a rock in the middle of the river, the current will make it difficult. The rock will be pulled away by the flow, and you'll struggle. But if you let go of the rock and let the river carry you, you'll feel free, peaceful, and able to enjoy the journey. This is what letting go of attachment feels like. When we are attached, we often experience feelings of fear, frustration, or sadness. For example, imagine you have a favorite possession, a watch, a car, or a piece of clothing. You take great pride in it, and you constantly worry about losing it or damaging it. Your mind is consumed with thoughts of protecting it, and you become anxious if something happens to it. But the reality is, the object itself is not the source of your happiness. It's the attachment to it that creates the suffering. In Buddhism, we learn that letting go of attachment doesn't mean we stop caring about things. It means we learn to enjoy them without allowing them to define our happiness. We can appreciate the things we have, but we don't let them control us. We understand that nothing is permanent, and that's okay. Life is meant to be experienced with an open hand, not a clenched fist. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is that attachment arises from ignorance. We fail to see the impermanence of things. We believe that things, whether material possessions, relationships, or even our own identity, are permanent and unchanging. But this belief only leads to suffering. When we recognize that everything is in a state of constant change, we can start to loosen our grip. Letting go of attachment is not easy. It requires mindfulness and awareness of our thoughts and behaviors. The first step is to notice when you are attaching yourself to something. When you catch yourself thinking, "I need this," or "I can't live without that," it's a signal that attachment is at play. Once you recognize this, you can gently remind yourself that nothing in life is permanent, and it's okay to let go. For instance, if you're overly attached to a person, you may feel anxious or possessive about them. You may fear losing their love or attention, and this fear can create stress and frustration. But true love and compassion come from freedom, not possession. In Buddhism, we are taught to love others without attachment. We love them for who they are, not because of what they give us. When we love without attachment, we allow both ourselves and others to be free. This concept of letting go is deeply connected to the Buddhist idea of non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop caring or you withdraw from life. It means you stop clinging to things with the expectation that they will always stay the same. It means you stop using your attachments to create your sense of identity and happiness. When you practice non-attachment, you open yourself up to experience life as it is, without the weight of expectations or fear of loss. One powerful practice in Buddhism to help with letting go is meditation. Through meditation, We learn to quiet our minds and observe our thoughts without becoming attached to them. We see thoughts come and go, like clouds passing in the sky. We don't need to hold on to many of them. The same can be done with feelings and desires. When a negative thought or emotion arises, instead of holding on to it, we let it pass. We don't identify with it. We simply observe it and allow it to flow away. Another practice is mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us to stay present in the moment and fully experience life as it unfolds. When we are mindful, we are less likely to become attached to things because we are aware that everything is temporary. When we eat mindfully, enjoying the taste and texture of our food, but not getting attached to it. When we walk mindfully, feeling each step, but not worrying about where we are going or what we might lose along the way. Letting go of attachment also means letting go of expectations. We often create mental images of how things should be, and when life doesn't match those images, we become frustrated or disappointed. But the Buddha taught that life is full of uncertainty, and trying to control it only leads to suffering. Instead of clinging to how you want things to be, embrace the flow of life with all its twists and turns. By releasing expectations, you open yourself to the beauty and unpredictability of life. Think about how much energy you spend holding on to things or people. How much of your mental and emotional energy goes into worrying about what might be lost or what you think you need. Now imagine releasing all that tension. Picture yourself in a state of peace, knowing that whatever comes your way, you can face it without fear or attachment. This is the freedom that Buddhism teaches us to achieve. The more we practice letting go, the more we begin to realize that we don't need external things to make us happy. Happiness comes from within. It comes from understanding that we are enough just as we are, and that our happiness is not dependent on anything outside of us. This realization is liberating. It brings inner peace and contentment, regardless of external circumstances. Buddhism invites us to live with a sense of ease and openness. When we stop clinging to things, we become like a leaf in the wind, moving with grace and flexibility. Life no longer feels like a battle or a struggle. Instead, it becomes a journey of discovery, where we can embrace change with open arms and find joy in the present moment. By letting go of attachment, we also make space for new experiences and new relationships. We stop holding on to the past and are able to fully embrace the present and future. We can create deeper connections with others because we are no longer using them to fulfill our own needs or desires. We simply enjoy them for who they are, without any expectations or conditions. The path of letting go is not an easy one, but it is the path to true freedom. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to look at ourselves honestly. It requires us to let go of old habits, fears, and beliefs that no longer serve us. But with each step, we move closer to a life of peace, joy, and freedom from suffering. In Buddhism, letting go of attachment is seen as a form of liberation. When we let go, we free ourselves from the cycle of craving and clinging that leads to suffering. We no longer need to chase after things to find happiness, because we have learned that happiness is already within us. And when we experience this freedom, we can live with an open heart, ready to embrace whatever life has to offer. So, how can you begin to let go of attachment? Start small. Notice the things you are attached to, whether it's a possession, a person, or an idea. Practice observing your thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them. With time, you'll find that the more you let go, the more peace and freedom you will experience in your life. Remember, attachment is a choice. Freedom is your birthright. Let go, and you will discover the true joy of living. Compassion and kindness, transforming negative emotions. In the journey of life, we all face moments of suffering, frustration, and sadness. These are normal parts of being human. But how do we respond to these feelings? Often, we react with anger, blame, or judgment, either towards others or ourselves. This reaction only feeds the negativity and makes us feel worse. So, how can we break free from this cycle? The answer lies in one of the most powerful practices in Buddhism, compassion. Compassion is not just feeling sorry for someone else. It's about truly understanding and connecting with their suffering. It's about recognizing that everyone, including ourselves, goes through pain. When we can accept that, we begin to see the world differently. Instead of focusing on the faults of others or our own problems, we start to look with eyes of understanding and kindness. Buddhism teaches that all beings are interconnected. The suffering of one is the suffering of all, and the happiness of one is the happiness of all. When we cultivate compassion, we shift from a mindset of separation to a mindset of unity. This shift is transformative because it helps us release negative emotions like anger, jealousy, and resentment. Instead of holding on to grudges or feeling bitter, we begin to embrace empathy and understanding. Imagine a time when you felt hurt or upset. What would have happened if, in that moment, you had chosen to respond with compassion instead of reacting with negativity? Maybe you were angry at someone who hurt you, or perhaps you felt misunderstood by those around you. What if, instead of holding on to that anger, you had paused, taken a deep breath, and thought, "I understand that this person may be struggling too. They are not perfect, and neither am I." That shift in thinking can create space for healing. Compassion is a practice, and like any practice, it requires effort. It's not always easy to respond with kindness, especially when we feel hurt or threatened. But when we make it a habit, it becomes a powerful tool for transforming our minds. Each act of compassion softens the harshness in our hearts and opens us up to peace. Kindness, too, plays a crucial role in transforming negative emotions. When we practice kindness, both towards ourselves and others, we break the cycle of negativity. It's easy to be hard on ourselves, especially when we make mistakes. We often judge ourselves too harshly and get caught up in feelings of guilt or shame. But when we practice kindness, we learn to forgive ourselves and recognize that we are doing our best. We are allowed to be imperfect. Think of the last time you were kind to someone, whether it was a small gesture or a big one. Maybe you held the door open for someone, or you took a moment to listen to a friend who was feeling down. That feeling of warmth you experienced wasn't just about making someone else feel good. It also made you feel good. Kindness has a ripple effect. It doesn't just change the person you're being kind to, it also transforms you in the process. The beauty of compassion and kindness is that they don't just help others, they help us too. When we show compassion to others, we begin to see their humanity, and we begin to see our own. This creates a bond, a sense of connection, and a feeling of belonging. Negative emotions like jealousy, anger, and frustration lose their grip when we can approach others with a sense of love and understanding. Buddhism teaches that by cultivating compassion and kindness, we transform the world around us. This transformation starts with our own hearts. When we are kind and compassionate, we create a space of peace within ourselves. This peace radiates outwards, affecting everyone we encounter. It's like a ripple in a pond. The kindness you show today can spread far and wide, touching lives you may never even know about. Compassion isn't just reserved for moments of crisis or when we feel pity for someone. It's an everyday practice. It can be as simple as smiling at a stranger, offering a kind word, or listening deeply when someone shares their feelings with you. These small acts of compassion can have a huge impact, not only on the person receiving them, but also on your own well-being. The more you practice kindness and compassion, the more natural it becomes to respond to life's challenges with a calm, loving heart. In Buddhism, there is a teaching called metta bhavana, or the practice of loving kindness. This practice involves sending thoughts of love and kindness not only to those we care about, but also to those we may find difficult. We begin with ourselves, offering kindness and compassion to our own hearts. From there, we extend it to others, friends, family, acquaintances, and even people we don't know. Finally, we extend this compassion to those we may have conflict with, understanding that they, too, are struggling with their own challenges. This practice of loving kindness helps us shift our focus from negativity to love. It teaches us to stop holding on to resentment, judgment, and anger. Instead, we start to focus on what's good and beautiful in others and in ourselves. This shift is powerful. It frees us from the negative emotions that keep us stuck in a cycle of suffering. The practice of compassion also teaches us about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about excusing someone's wrongs. It's about releasing the grip that anger and resentment have on our hearts. It's about understanding that holding on to negative emotions only hurts us in the end. Forgiveness is an act of self-liberation. When we forgive, We release ourselves from the chains of bitterness and open ourselves up to peace. Compassion and kindness are not just ideas in Buddhism. They are practices that can change your life. By making these qualities a part of your daily routine, you start to rewire your brain to respond to challenges with love and understanding instead of fear or anger. This doesn't mean you will never feel negative emotions again. It means that, when they arise, you have the tools to transform them. You don't have to be controlled by them. To cultivate compassion, start with simple steps. Begin by acknowledging your own suffering and offering kindness to yourself. Then, reach out to others. Show kindness even to those who may not deserve it in the moment. Remember, compassion doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It's about showing up with an open heart, ready to understand and support. As you practice kindness and compassion, notice how your emotional landscape begins to change. The heaviness of negativity starts to lift, and you find yourself more open, more peaceful, and more connected to the world around you. When we stop feeding our negative emotions and start feeding our hearts with love and understanding, we create a brighter, more compassionate world for ourselves and everyone we meet. Buddhism teaches that true peace comes not from the absence of challenges, but from the way we respond to them. With compassion, we can face life's difficulties with grace and wisdom. By transforming our negative emotions into acts of kindness and love, we transform not only ourselves but the world around us.